the handouts that we put out there. They just sort of highlight some of the questions that we have. We'll go ahead and get started here. Obviously, I think we're all here today because we have great concern for the residents of Glendale, and we are as worried as many of the residents of the city are at the results of the recent audit that came out. Now, we know that this audit talked at great length about the retirement system and the transfer of funds from the multi-city insurance liability fund to cover the costs of retired employees. But it lends itself to some of the issues that we have brought up regarding the way Glendale is operating. As many of you know, they are currently under investigation by the Attorney General's office because of the way they have misused funds and transferred monies. In fact, page 2 of a letter that many of you have received from the Attorney General says, please provide a brief overview of the process by which city funds are moved from one account to another to satisfy the city obligations. Well, to answer the Attorney General's question regarding the transfer of monies and the NHL, I believe and we believe that the process is exactly the same that the city used in relation to the employee retirement fund. Illegally. It's done illegally. It's done unlawfully. It is not done appropriately. And so some of you have a spreadsheet that we provided that shows, how some of this is happening, where you have 15 million coming from the city's enterprise funds, which is water and sewer and utilities, and it's being transferred for arena event operations. That is not the true destination and purpose of those monies. So what we're saying to the Attorney General, what we're saying to the public is, not only do we need to act on the results of this audit, which have revealed parts of this, but we need to have a subsequent audit done by the Attorney General to further investigate this. The citizens of Glendale are owed almost a $50 million rebate or refund on their utility money taken from the enterprise fund to go to pay for fees to the NHL. It makes no sense. What's going on in the city is criminal. Obviously, we feel that Mr. Beasley needs to be held accountable. We saw excessive pay for very little work for certain employees within the city, but the true matter here, the true outrage here, is that the city council, during the last administration and now, unfortunately, is allowing city administrators and the city managers to do whatever they want to do with funds without proper checks and balances. Every one of these money transfers, the idea to transfer money from the liability insurance fund, which is a multi-city pool, to transfer it to cover the retirement costs of certain individual employees, that was something that the council voted on. So we are talking about the misappropriation of funds, the transferring of funds, segregated funds with a specific purpose. The council is standing by. The council, many of them are guilty of voting to allow the city administrators to abuse public funds. That is the root of this. That is what's at the root of this public corruption. Some of the questions we've raised, the root cause of the city's financial problems today, it's not the cost of the retirement incentive program that was offered in 2009 to keep from avoiding employee layoffs. That's minuscule compared to the $50 million that's been paid by the NHL to subsidize the hockey team. So some of the questions we have are, where did that money come from, that $50 million? And how did the city vote to allow the enterprise funds at sanitation, landfill, and water and sewer to be abused by the administrators in that way? Was it approved by the council? If so, when was it? Was it budgeted? If so, when was it? Was it legitimate? If so, please explain how those funds were used legitimately. These are all questions we want the AG to answer. And after talking today, I can say I met with Horatio Skeet. Absolutely, there's no way to explain it. And I think there's two questions that come out of that conversation. One is why when records show that it only cost maybe net $7 million to manage Jobbing.com Arena, did the city subsidize the NHL to the tune of $25 million? And then secondly, the decision to spend from the enterprise funds to pay the NHL $25 million was paid by ratepayers. So how are we going to refund the people that pay their utility bills or the higher fees if we're thinking this was going to utility services or enterprise services? How will we refund those people that hard-earned money that was robbed from them as a part of this scheme to cover up the deficit in employee retirement and to address lack of money to pay the NHL? It's a terrible scandal. After this, we're going to talk to the AG, but we know, many of us are certain, that we will see indictments soon because of this misappropriation, mishandling of public monies. Are there any questions?
What if the AG's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
What if the AG's office finds no wrongdoing or criminal?
I think the fact that the auditors found criminal wrongdoing, at least in their opinion, is indicative of what the Attorney General will find. I think that the AG's office is absolutely being as aggressive as they can in terms of investigating this. I don't see how they can. I don't see how they can't find criminal activity. It is criminal to move funds from one segregated fund, monies that have a specific purpose. It is criminal to move those funds to cover a deficit in another area. You cannot do that. You cannot take money that you told the ratepayers and the citizens of Glendale was going to pay for sewage and water and use it to pay for employee retirement or to pay for hockey. Those funds have a specific purpose. It is against the law to take highway funds and pay the NHL. It is against the law to take infrastructure funds and pay the NHL. It's against the law to do that. And they didn't just do it for the hockey arena, for Jobbing.com. They did it for Camelback Ranch. They did it for the parking garage at the hotel. They've done it all the way across the board.
Yeah, sure. Glendale Daily Planet. Sir, how deep do you think this goes? I mean, is this just really the tip of the iceberg? How much further is it?
I think that we can see the iceberg in its entirety. I think it was Mr. Beasley who, in my opinion, forced it on other employees beneath him, his way or the highway, and he felt he could get away with doing that because at the time then, as we see now, unfortunately, the council is willing to co-sign on illegal activities. The current council is guilty of the same thing. The AG has asked, what is the process that the city has for transferring funds from one account to another when you are supposed to and when you're not supposed to? They have used the same formula that got them in trouble with the Employee Retirement Fund with the NHL. And you see that City Attorney Tyndall called for the audit, right? So obviously he saw something was wrong. He said, come and investigate us. But before the results of the audit come out, he's retired and gone. He never did anything to change the culture of corruption here at City Hall. And now we hear he's going to work for, I think it's Mr. LeBlanc. So does anyone catch the irony in there? Even the city attorney knew something was wrong, but no one took policy steps to make sure that administrators were disciplined and that the culture of corruption would stop inside of Glendale City Hall. They let it go on, and now it's come to a head in terms of the retirement fund. And I believe that the Attorney General will find that the same types of corruption and misappropriation of funds, federal funds, state funds, muni funds, insurance funds, segregated funds were moved around to cover the city's behind for the sheer fact the city doesn't have any money. And when you're broke, you've got to shuffle the money around to cover your costs.
Harold Blair, editor of the Glendale Star. I just want to know, what is your involvement? How did you get involved? And what is your reason for being here today?
To me, it's very simple. I have talked with the councilwoman. I've talked with other members on the council, community leaders and stakeholders. There are poor African Americans in Glendale. There are poor Latinos in Glendale. There are poor whites in Glendale. There are people who are paying a higher sewage bill. I know if you live in Glendale, you know your water bill's gone up. And that to me is an economic justice issue, is a civil rights issue, and those people have brought it to my attention. And they are pushing us very hard to act on their behalf to try to get to the bottom of just what the city is doing. And I think it's outrageous, and it's incumbent upon us as community leaders, and certainly all of you as members of the media, to investigate why is the city taking monies that are set aside with a specific purpose, segregated funds, sometimes federal money, and using it to pay other bills. That is wrong. That is illegal. The AG will tell you that. We're telling you that today.
Do you have any evidence aside from that single letter from the Attorney General's office that they are in fact doing an investigation?
I spoke this morning on the phone with Horatio Skeet and the Attorney General, and I understand that he's filing a whistleblower's complaint with the Attorney General's office. That's something that they're working on now. So I know he's actively investigating it.
Okay, because he's on administrative leave.
Yes. No, I think he's been fired, as I understand it.
I think they did that, or they were doing that yesterday. Let me come to the defense of the employees.
First, and you are whom?
My name is Norma Alvarez, and I'm a council member in Ocotillo. The executive team of the city of Glendale knew what was being done. All the executive team, because they were all in the meetings where they discussed all this. Now, it's like being handpicked as to who they're getting rid of. That is wrong. If everybody heard and didn't say anything, then the executive team needs to answer some questions. It wasn't just Horatio, Beasley, the people that came on in the audit.
Councilperson Alvarez, at Sharp, Glendale Daily Planet, do you feel that Horatio Skeet is being singled out and being made a scapegoat?
I do.
Could you elaborate on that?
Mr. Skeet leveled with the council now on all questions that were asked of him. And that's why we got the idea of we better do an audit. So if he was so guilty, why would he encourage the audit? Now, what I'm telling you, the executive team are not bad people, but they followed direction and they all knew. And those figures that they gave you, I got them from my book when I came in here in January of 11. I voted no on those transfers because it was $15 million transferred to the arena. I thought that was wrong when they took it out of the water fund. So that's why I sent them to the Attorney General, because since I got here, I've been ridiculed, I've been told that I was lying, and I'm giving you the proof. Now, the employees that are being laid off or fired are as innocent as Mr. Skeet. The council knew. They voted on its public record. It was on the agenda. That's how I found out, not because I was digging.
You're speaking about the money that went for the hockey team, is that
Yes.
right?
But they also
But
were
we saw-
aware and voted on the action to transfer the money from the multi-city insurance liability pool into the employee retirement scheme that they enacted. So both sets of councils under Mayor Scruggs and now under the current mayor were aware that that is what was going on. They co-signed, they gave their seal of approval on what the city manager said was what they needed to do in order to cover those costs.
But wasn't the employee retirement thing done before the current council? That was done in 9 and 10.
Right, I said
Yeah,
both councils. So what I'm saying is that the culture in City Hall hasn't changed. They're conducting the same behavior of borrowing money from one pool and setting it into another pool. And the fact is, they shouldn't be touching most of the money that they're transferring.
So What are you accusing the current council of doing then?
We're accusing the current council of doing exactly what the former council did, sitting there and turning a blind eye to the fact that the administration, the executive team, is illegally transferring money from one fund that shouldn't be touched into the other, not being good stewards of the public's money.
What more could they do besides asking for an audit and then firing the people they believe were guilty?
I think they could behave as though a culture of corruption existed in City Hall, but before, when we were talking about the arena stuff, Connect, Sherwood, they all act like nothing's going wrong, everything is fine here at Glendale City Hall, and the fact of the matter is, it isn't. The administrators are behaving the same way under this council that they were behaving under the former council, and they're doing nothing to stop it.
Sir, could you remind us who is on the executive team?
Well, I'm speaking mainly to Mr. Beasley and to Horatio Skeet, who have been the focus of this.
Well, all the department, and Julie can correct me, she's here, she knows who the executive team is. Julie, do you have the list of the executive team?
I would defer to Councilwoman Alvarez for who she is referring. I don't know who she is.
No, I'm just referring to the executive team. We can get you a list. Julie Frazzoni was on that list. You know, the department heads, that's the executive team. And they all knew what was being done.
And I have it on good authority that they were coached beforehand. They call it the agenda planning session before they go in front of the council. That's the get your story straight session. And that's not fair to the public. For city administrators to be coached or manipulated into taking a position that goes against what actual numbers are saying. That's why we have this problem. And that's at the root of the corruption. But obviously an internal audit is not enough to clear the air here, which is why we're hoping that the AG's office steps in and conducts their own audit so that they can come in and see for themselves how the money was transferred. That's why they asked specifically in their letter, what is the city, that's the big question, what is the city's policy for transferring funds from one account to the other? Please explain to the public, to us, to the Attorney General, how you lawfully feel that you can take money from the enterprise fund, which is the utilities, or you can take money from stimulus grants or federal monies and apply them to NHL debts and or cover shortfalls in the employee retirement system. There's no way of explaining that isn't criminal.
So it seems like you're saying that Ed Beasley and Skeet are guilty of corruption, but Councilwoman Alvarez, you're saying that they're no more guilty than anyone. The two of you seem to be in contrast on that point.
What I'm saying is the executive team, which included Mr. Beasley and Mr. Skeet, the attorney, Mr. Tyndall, all of them were the executive team. And this was discussed in meetings of the executive team. And all you have to do is ask for the minutes of those meetings. And so blaming the budget director, they were carrying out, but most of all, the city council itself, not this present, but from the year where all this has been done, is that council knew. And when it was too late, when the mayor started asking questions, it was already done.
But it's not too late now, under the current council, for the AG to act on this council and this current set of executive team members, because they have behaved in the same way. They've illegally transferred money from segregated accounts, specifically segregated accounts like the utilities, to cover costs with the NHL. It's a repeat of what the first audit exposed, except this time it's not the employee retirement fund. This time it's money's being transferred from those accounts to cover the cost of the NHL.
I've talked to a nearby city about these transfers that you have on the first page. It says while they're not illegal, because they're listed, they're just done kind of like an under the rug type thing, being on a cleanup ordinance. So he's telling me it's not illegal to do this. Just the way it was done was kind of sneaky.
It's not illegal for a city to transfer $15 million from water and sewage to pay costs to the NHL?
The way it was done here, he explained to me it was not illegal. It's just kind of a sneaky way to do it. Would you agree it
Was that
sneaky?
person an attorney?
Yes, he was.
Well, the Attorney General
Doesn't feel that.
doesn't feel like, and look, my role in this is Ocotillo District has suffered because of these business tactics. That is my concern. My concern is the employees that are being let go and then hiding behind them saying we didn't know about it. We took an oath when we became council. We needed to follow that oath. That's all my concern. I don't care if they don't, even if the Attorney General and the media puts it in their way. The people know better.
And to your question, was it sneaky? Was it underhanded? Sure, especially when you add up your revenues and your revenues don't come anywhere near to what your costs come to. So if you know that the return, they use the term, what did Beasley tell me? They borrowed the money from water and sewage to pay the cost to the NHL. Well, the illegality comes in. How in the hell do you explain how you're gonna pay that money back? That's the crime, is their inability and their knowledge that they had no means by which to repay the money that was borrowed from the enterprise fund. So you can't take money from a fund and say we're going to use it to pay down something else. By the way, we found out we can't pay it back when you knew beforehand that you couldn't pay back that money. So it's obvious. That's called corruption. That's not called being sneaky. That's called being corrupt. And we're sure the AG will get to the bottom of that, and we're going to help him do that. Absolutely. Any additional questions?
Thank you.
That's it.
That's all.
You can ask for a copy of the spreadsheet.
You can have this copy.
Do you have a card?
Okay.
I don't, but I give you both my cell number. You got a pen?
I don't. Most ill-prepared orders today in the world.